to be hosting tonight's roundtable. And I'm welcoming all of you who have been with us before, and for all of you who this is your first time, welcome. You're really in for a treat and another substantive dialogue here at with ALL Interfaith. Connecting people and dialogue is really JAM's purpose and mission, and really getting people to connect. And so we're really happy that you're with us and looking forward to sharing views and ideas tonight. I want to formally introduce Reverend Todd Humphrey, who is our technical and Zoom host. And I got to tell you how grateful we are to Reverend Todd, because he's enabled us to have these roundtables, and he's really made this possible. So we're very, very grateful, and we're very privileged and honored to have Reverend Todd be our technical guide. And he's going to come back later in the program to give us some more instructions, particularly when we join our breakout groups. Tonight's session is on learning to listen to the other. And it's the first of 3 dialogue sessions on intensifying the light presented by ALL Interfaith. Our last 3 sessions focused on the Abrahamic tradition, faith-based traditions, and racism. And we thought coming into 2021, given everything that's going on, that intensifying the light would really help us all as we move forward. And we're really excited to have that conversation with you all tonight. And I'll be very soon introducing our speaker, which is very exciting. I'll tell you a little bit about ALL. ALL Interfaith was founded shortly after 9/11 to provide an opportunity for education and social interaction with people of different faiths and backgrounds. And over the 20 years since, ALL Interfaith has had conferences, town hall meetings, roundtables, picnics, potluck dinners, film viewing, always with a focus on bringing people together to dialogue. And so we do that again in our roundtables. And we had our roundtables in person, and now we're doing them virtually. And we're delighted to be able to host people from all over, not just South Florida. So tonight, we'd like to provide a safe space for you and exchange our ideas and truly listen to each other. We want to really talk about how can we really listen to each other, and how can we listen to people who have different beliefs and practices from ours. And in a country that's so divided, I can't imagine a more relevant or useful discussion. And so we have a wonderful guest speaker, and she's going to introduce our topic. And after she speaks, we're going to break out into small groups for 30-minute discussions. And then we're going to come back and report to the larger group what we've kind of discovered in our discussions. So I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Fartun Mohamud. Dr. Mohamud is the founder of KAAFI Counseling and a licensed mental health clinician. She's a qualified supervisor with a master's in mental health counseling and a doctorate in educational leadership. Dr. Mohamud has over 20 years of diverse experience in the mental health and education field. During this time, she served in various leadership roles in the public and private sectors, including providing leadership for the development and implementation of mental health equity, diversity, and inclusive educational practices, and the design of a psychoeducational curriculum to enhance resilience and healing. Dr. Mohamud is committed to strengthening relationships that lead to healthy and transformative life for individuals, couples, families, and communities. Her commitment has been shaped by her own family's devastating dislocation and refugee experiences. The lived experiences of her family have afforded her with a deep sense of appreciation of the impact that trauma has on individuals, families, relations, and communities. And so at this time, I am delighted to turn it over to Dr. Fartun Mohamud.
Thank you, Sister Chris. I appreciate that introduction. And I'm just going to load up my, share my PowerPoint because it kind of serves as a reminder for me as I'm speaking. So thank you so very much for having me. I am delighted to be here. So Chris and I have been talking for back and forth for a while, and she told me about JAM Interfaith, and I already spoke with Judith. We belong to the same group. And I always heard about JAM Interfaith, but I have never, Interfaith JAM, never participated or never, always wanted to participate, but never had the opportunity. So when Judith called me, I was really excited to be a participant, not to be a speaker. I am excited to be a speaker, but I am really excited about being a participant and sharing the same space with you all. The topic that, that we will talk about today is learning to listen to others. Listening is such a huge, huge topic. So in 15 minutes is really, I'm just gonna whet your appetite and maybe get excited about questions and get excited about the dialogue so we can continue to have conversations in how to do that. Before I start, I thought I'd give you 2 questions. If you would do me a favor, and if you could just write in the chat the answers to these 2 questions. And the reason that I thought I'd come up with these 2 questions and ask you tonight to share, it's because the topic is so large. I thought what you write tonight will be something that's going to give us fuel for future discussions, for enlightenment, for all of us to kind of consider what the other person is sharing. So I'm going to pause for about maybe less than a minute. So if you would take a minute and just write down the answers to these questions, you can answer both or you can answer one in the chat session. Okay, for the sake of time, I see people are still writing, but for the sake of time, continue to write, please, because this will be something that we can use in the future. But if you would also, Chris, do you mind, Sister Chris, do you mind kind of saying 1 or 2 of what folks wrote for us?
I see, how do I listen to someone whose beliefs are totally opposite from mine? And how can I manage the difference between responding to another and reacting to another? I am opening to listening, but how do I get another to listen to me?
I love that. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sister Chris. And we will go ahead and I will be able to answer these questions that came up. But as the night goes, we will revisit these the chats that the things that you wrote, so we can continue to have discussions. Even if we don't get to all of them, I am sure the committee will use them for future purposes. So thank you for writing and for participating. And thank you for listening to me. I can't, my slides, it won't go down. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is my objective today. Like I said, listening is really a very large topic and it's a very important topic. So let me tell you a little bit of what I do every day. I do talk therapy. And I always said, why do they call it talk therapy? Why don't they call it listening therapy, because that's what we do. And when we listen, we know that people open up. People come and tell you their stories when you're listening. They share their intimate histories with you when they listen. So tonight we're going to talk about the power of listening. And then we're going to talk about listening to learn, to heal, and to connect. And then I will give you some real quick tools. And those are the questions that came up, how to do that, especially when you are triggered or when you are dealing with your own challenges. How do you listen to somebody else who might be different than you, or who might have different values, or who might not listen to you? So how do you listen to someone who's not listening to you? So we're going to talk about that. So I have a question for you. And this, I'm sure you heard all of this, the whole, always. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Who wants to respond to that? And this is, I'm going to ask you to respond this way. I can't see you all. If you could do thumbs up if it makes sound, or thumbs down if it doesn't make sound. Thumbs up and make sound, thumbs down if it doesn't make sound. Okay. This is what they say about sound. The argument, the scientists argue that when a tree falls in a forest, it makes a vibration. You need someone listening for it to make a sound. So sound requires hearing, requires someone to hear it and listen to it. So, but it does make vibration. So isn't that interesting? That question people ask all the time, but by definition, sound requires an ear to hear. So why is listening important? We have hearing. We all hear. Hearing is a function. Martin Luther King said, when a child cries, a child needs someone to listen to their cry for them to be supported. So even as a baby, we're still communicating. So communication requires listening. But listening requires focus. Even though we can all hear, listening is intentional. It requires focus. It requires for us to attend. And it requires us to understand. So listening is a choice. And it's a skill that we must learn. But unfortunately, how many of you have been taught about listening at school? Zero, I imagine. I haven't been taught on how to listen. But listening is so important in human relationship. Very, very important in human relationship, that if we don't listen to each other, the consequences are really great. And we will talk about the consequences in a minute. At this time that we are living, we say that this is the era for communication age, right? But unfortunately, are we listening? People are talking, but are we hearing? Are we listening? We all talking, right? We all speaking, Twitter, social media, Zoom meetings. We are all talking, but are we listening is the question. Communication requires listening. But when we talk about communication, we talk about talking. We don't talk about listening. We are taught how to be articulate, how to communicate, how to write. But we are not taught how to pause and how to listen. People argue that listening is the golden key to relationships. I have worked with many folks and many clients that have relationship difficulties. And when you unpack it, it comes down to listening. Are we hearing each other? Are we honoring each other? Are we holding space for each other, because listening requires someone to hold the space for another. It requires open heart, right? It's an act of love, and it's intentional. I have to intend to listen. And one of the questions that was asked was, if somebody has different belief system or different values than me, it will be difficult to listen. The thing that get in the way of listening is our assumptions, our lack of interest in other, our belief systems that we know it all, that we are the right ones. If we can suspend that, if we can suspend believing that we are in the right all the time, if we can suspend that we know it all, if we can suspend the assumptions that we make of others, because when I make an assumption, I put you in a box. If I put you in a box, then I'm not interested in what you have to say. You don't matter. You don't know anything. I already labeled you, right? So for me to be able to hear you, I have to set the intention to hear you and to listen to you. And most of the time we don't do that. My children, when they were little, we driving in the car and they will tell me a story, they going and going and going and going, and I'm listening. I mean, I'm hearing, not listening. And then they will say, so what, Mom? They will ask me, and I'm sure most of you have been in that position where somebody says, so what do you think? And you're like, what? I didn't hear what you said. I did not listen. And my kids used to be really upset when I do that. So I learned not to do that. Right? So why is it hard? I think somebody asked that question. Why is it hard to listen? Now that we know how important it is. It's the key that unlocks human relationships. Several reasons why it's hard. And I talked about the assumptions that we hold, the othering, when we put a person as other, you are different. When we dehumanize a group and strip them of their humanity because of social biases or because of implicit biases, because of things that we have learned about that group, then what that group is saying is not important anymore. It can be important because they are not important. So I have all these belief systems in my head that will get in the way for me to even set the intention to hear the other person at a personal level. And it was one of the questions that was raised was, what if the other person is not listening to me? And I have a little story about that I had a client one time who was having relationship difficulties with a partner. And we were talking about how to talk to the partner and bring the partner into conversation so that way they can have a conversation. And I was kind of walking her through how to set up the conversation. And then she says, well, I said, all right, you listen and then you share and then you let him know what you heard. And she said, well, what if he says, that's not what I said? And I said, okay, so what if he says that that's not what you said? That means you didn't hear him right. And she says, well, that will make me angry. Because here I am trying to listen to him. And I repeated what he said. And then he says, that's not what I said. I mean, she was really serious. She was really sad that she was going to be upset. because she felt he was not listening to her. So she was ready just to talk about, and that's not just her, that's not just the client. I think most of us are that. We want to be heard. I don't know if you're all familiar with Stephen Covey, and I will share one of his quotations later. One of the things that he says is seek first to understand before you ask to be understood. And we will get to that in a minute. But another reason that listening is hard, it's because we have our own stories that get in the way. We have cluttered minds sometimes. We are thinking about different things. We are busy with social media. We are planning the dinner. Our thoughts are all over the place. So it's hard to stop our thoughts and hold the space for somebody else. And that is what listening requires. Listening requires for us to suspend our needs, suspend our ego, and just enter that person's world and just listen to what they have to say and really, really hear what they are trying to say. So the clutter in our mind gets in the way. Sometimes we get triggered. And those of you that are in the mental health field also know that when we are emotionally flooded, when we are upset, whatever the reasons are, our cognitive abilities become limited. It gets restricted, or sometimes it even goes offline. And we are a ball of emotions. And when we are a ball of emotions, it's hard to hear the other person that just triggered you. And we saw what's happening in our nation lately. That strong belief that I am right. I'm emotionally in a heightened state. It's hard to hear the other. When my light is dimmed, it's hard to hold the light for another person. So I think if we are gonna strengthen our skills to listen, we have first to learn to listen to ourselves. We have to first take care of us and our needs. What is it that is getting in the way of me to hear, to listen, to enter another perspective or to hold another perspective? I think there's a saying that says, the sign of intelligence is not believing everything you hear or heard, but entering and entertaining every thought. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to take it as your own, but listen it first to choose, because you are denying yourself to learn if you're not listening. So what do we need? And I'm looking at the time so that way I don't go over the time. What do we need? What are the tools that we can use? And I'm going to give you one quick tool of listening called reflective empathic listening. And I found this tool really, I use it in my own experiences as well. It's really a powerful way to be with the other person, to hear the other person, genuine listening. And I'm just going to give you 4 quick steps. Steps 1, and we talked about set the intention. So when you're going to listen to someone, when you go in and having especially hard conversations that might engender a lot of emotions, take deep breaths. Reflect back on yourself and say, what can get in the way of this conversation? So when I work with my clients and I'm trying to kind of build this communication and listening skills, one of the things that I share with them is go in there with positive assumptions. Assume positive intention from the other person. So so that way you don't become defensive, right? So set that intention first. Go in there with the goal of trying to understand. This is not about you. That moment of communication and you listening, it's not about you. Totally, it's about the other person, you entering that person's world. And your goal, your number one goal is to understand. This one is a hard one. Attune. Listen with your heart. So what comes when we are talking to others, most of us, especially when in everyday life and what have you, we listen not to understand, we listen to reply most of the time. Because we are busy, we are running, so I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. But deep and reflective and empathic listening requires us to enter the other person and to listen with our heart instead of with our head. So you're gonna suspend all judgments, right? You're gonna listen with your heart. And also you're gonna listen to the other person's underlying emotions. What is coming up for them? You're not just hearing the words. It's not about the words, it's about the emotions under the words. What is this person trying to communicate? You can watch their nonverbal behaviors. You can watch their facial expressions. Hear the emotions and the feelings underlying the words. Pay attention to that. Repeat that to them and say, I think what I hear is, what I notice is. And let them correct you. I notice that you are upset about that. Let them say, I'm not upset if they're not upset. Don't worry about making a mistake because they will correct you. So observe, pay attention. Paraphrase. I gave you 3 of them here and either one of them works. So we set the intention, we walked in and we talking to the person and it's about the person, it's not about us. So we're here to listen, let them talk. Now we are listening to emotions as well and underlying feelings and emotions. Now our next step is to paraphrase or mirror back or summarize. The reason for this step that is really, really important for several reasons. Number one, what it does, it slows down the conversation. When you slow down the conversation, you're doing 2 things. Number one, you're hearing the person completely. The other one is you are kind of monitoring the emotions that are coming up for you as well, because the person might say something. And if you trigger it and your emotions are coming up, this is a perfect time to slow down and focus on the other person by just breathing and paraphrasing. And when you do that, you're stepping out of you and you're entering the other person. So that gives you that moment of release and relief to be able to do that. And actually, there's a third one too. And the third one is the person can correct you now if you didn't hear them correctly, right? They can correct you. They can say, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. And then you can say, okay, tell me, help me understand. And the minute a person feels understood, it is so powerful. And I tell my clients and the people I work with, the minute the person feels understood, they are ready to suspend their ego, their needs, and really hear you. Because what I found is when 2 people are saying, hear me, when people get angry and loud, it's because they feel like they're not being heard. The more they feel they're not being heard, the louder they get. The louder they get. So paraphrasing, which means I'll paraphrase, and mirror back, it's giving it back to them in your own words. Everything that they said, you just mirror it back. Paraphrases, you paraphrase it, and summarizes, you summarize the conversation. Now the last step, open-ended questions. And you all know I'm not going to talk about open-ended commission. And the picture that I chosen was the pearl. And that is when you get to the meat of what they want to see, what they want to say. Because the more that you hold that space for them and let them talk, the more they will give you, the more they will open their hearts to you, the more that they are ready to hear you. These are the 4 steps. Now, there's a saying that says the biggest evil in the world, most of the biggest evil in the world, are perpetuated by people who are not willing to hear the other or strongly believe in what they believe and are not ready to shift their belief, which I think was very fascinating. The conflicts in the world, the families that break up, the relationships that are in pain, can be started, the healing process, by the simple step of listening and holding space for that another human being. Because we really do have biological imperative to flourish. Humans, we move, we gravitate towards healing. We gravitate towards positive energy. We gravitate towards love and the light, intensifying the light. That is our biological imperative. And that is what every human in this world, from a baby's first cry to an adult that we all are now, that's all we seek. So there's a, and I might say it wrong, but I think there's a Buddha quotation that says, if you want to change the world, change the country. If you want to change the country, change the city. If you want to change the city, change the community. If you want to change the community, change the family. If you want to change the family, change the individual. So this listening journey, I think it's all on all of us to strengthen our skills and to hold the space for our fellow humans and just listen. And I guarantee you, and I don't guarantee a whole lot of things, that the minute you listen to that person and hold the space for them, they will be willing to hear you and hold the space for you. So it starts with the individual and with us. So these were the objectives today. I hope I didn't go over the time, Sister Chris. And I thank you for listening to me.
And I love what you said, and I love to hear that it's a biological imperative for us to gravitate towards love. That was wonderful information. And now we're going to break into our discussion groups so that we can talk about what impacted us the most about this topic. There's so much rich material here for us to delve into. And we're going to start, in a minute, Reverend Todd is going to take over and divide us into groups. And we're going to be doing a special listening exercise that Dr. Fartun suggested. And so when you go, you're going to go directly into your group, and then the activity is going to be introduced. And the activity is going to take place before we even introduce ourselves. We're gonna take part in a moment. Your facilitators will instruct you, but as soon as we get into the groups, we're going to do this activity, which is really, as I think I understand it, taking a minute to just listen to whatever's going on in your environment. And then we're going to introduce ourselves, report back, introduce ourselves and say what that was like, share our spiritual affiliations, and jump into the discussions. And when we're in groups, each group is going to select a reporter. And so the reporters are responsible to take the nugget, take one thing that really impacts the whole group, one thing that everybody, an aha moment from their discussion that they want to come back to the big group with. So when you get into the group, we'll do the activity, you'll select a reporter, and then dive into what really impacted you the most about this topic, this juicy topic. So we ask you for patience. We're gonna have Rev Todd come on now and divide us into groups.
Hey everyone, I'm gonna open up the breakout rooms. One quick thing to make sure everyone was listening. Reverend Chris just invited everyone to come back and report one thing. Remember that, one nugget from each of your groups, okay? We don't have enough time to hear everything that is shared in your group. We want that one nugget that you want to share, okay? We're looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Everyone is going to be invited into a breakout room. We really need you to participate. If you're unable to, don't accept the invitation, but our hope is that you will be able to participate. So now you're just going to accept the invitation. Welcome back, everyone, and we're hoping and knowing and affirming that you all had great conversations in your breakout rooms. What we are going to do now is we are going to invite some people from each of the breakout rooms to share with us. And I've got some people that are the group leaders. If you will let me know in the chat box who is going to report for your room, that would be awesome. So I'll know who to call on. Everyone that is going to report will be able to unmute themselves at this time. So know that when I call your name, you can just unmute. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with room 4. So Irma, I see that you are going to report for us from room 4. So I just want to also remind everyone before we start, we're looking for one piece of wisdom that came out of your conversation today. Just one piece of wisdom that came out of your conversation that you want to share with our larger group. So Irma, if you will unmute and share with us.
Okay, hi everybody. I have to preface this with, we had a hard time kind of settling down and concentrating because a couple of folks in the group, I think all of us really, was disturbed by the events that occurred in the country this week, and we talked about that a little bit. But overall, we decided that, you know, the tools that Dr. Fartun mentioned was excellent, and then we're open to using those tools because we really see that we have a necessity, a need to do this work because of what is going on, you know, in our country, in our neighborhoods, within our friendships, within our families. So we realize we must lead with our open hearts and our spirituality that we claim and take ownership of, to tap into our better angels to do this work.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Irma. Thank you indeed. Next, let's turn to Kathy from Group 1. Kathy, if you will unmute yourself. I'm looking for you. There we go.
Oh, we had a wonderful sharing in our group, and I think the key thing that came out for us was the sense of stepping aside from our ego, from the static that we create in our own minds maybe thoughts that what we're going to say next when somebody's talking, but that sense that we can go deep and learn how to quiet our own mind so that we can actually hear the other person. I think all of us felt that was a really key thing that you had said, Dr. Fartun, and that we resonated really with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And now we are going to move to group 2. Audrey, will you unmute yourself?
Yes, I did. I was so glad to be with that little group. We discussed what our nugget could be, and it seemed to be tied around the topic of assumptions, how important it is to really want to get to know somebody else, and to be able to listen with a sense of trust, not assume that you know what they're about to say or what they really meant without checking it out. And that kind of trust helps to facilitate the conversation, like of what the words mean, why is the person using them. It's also harder to listen to your family members. We'll just throw that in. I don't know if I presented it well, but it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
You did a great job, Audrey. We appreciate your participating and your feedback. Reverend Darby Line, can you share with us now?
Sure. We also had a wonderful group, wonderful conversation. The first thing we all agreed on was, yeah, we don't know how to do this. It's a skill, and we have to continually learn, practice, and learn listening. But the piece that really kind of resonated with all of us was in about the moment of stopping and pausing and taking a breath and allowing the other person. And when we do that, we step out of our ego emotional turmoil. And that is when we can allow our divine light to shine brightly on the other person.
Beautiful. Nice.
Well, great sharing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Darby. Stephanie, you're going to report from group 5?
I am.
Excellent. Talk to us.
Well, the thing that I believe stood out for us had to do with intention. And what we came up with is that listening with intention is so important, but also speaking with intention is important. So when we're listening with intention, one way we want to show that is through making eye contact and, you know, being tuned into the body language. But something that affected all of us very much was when somebody in our group spoke about having been very ill. And when she was very ill, that's when her children really started to listen to her with full respect and depth. And then when she got better, they were starting to not listen so well again. So I believe it was our facilitator, said that you could make a request and tell them it was so meaningful to me and so important to me when you listened with such, I can't quote it exactly, but when you listened to me with so much feeling. And I would like us to continue to do that. I would like to continue to be heard that way. And a point that my group wanted me to make sure to be clear about is when someone talks, we don't necessarily have to reply. We can just listen. So I hope my group feels I did a good job. I also want to say that I am surprised at how quickly we bonded. It was such a great experience. I really am moved by the experience.
Excellent, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing. Eye contact is one of the best things. We all want to be seen. And I know that I've got a couple of seminary classmates that are in here, including Reverend Darby, and we all came to be seen and to be heard. Standalin, I think you are going to report for us from group 6. So you have one nugget for us that you want to share?
Yes, I do.
What one nugget do you have for us?
Setting an intention to listen in totality with our hearts and all of our senses was our biggest takeaway.
Wow. We say that for us one more time. I think that is that.
Setting an intention to listen in totality with our hearts and all of our senses.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's a great one. Maxine, you're going to report for us from group 7, I think. Will you unmute yourself?
We also focused on the part about putting your ego on hold when you're listening. And then once you really listen, you need to start forgetting yourself. It may be necessary to lower the tone, but just keep listening, trying to understand, and then strive to understand by starting a real dialogue that can go back and forth. And sometimes you realize you may need to change the subject. Sometimes you may not get anywhere, so change the subject so everybody can be happy. Walk away.
Thank you, Maxine, for those words of wisdom. That's great. So let's see. We are now going to turn to Fran. Fran Kraft, will you unmute yourself, friend?
Hi.
There you are, Fran. Hey.
We had a small but great group, and we actually focused much on our feelings about how we are coping with everything that's going on. But the one thing that came out was that technology, which we've all become very well accustomed to, that has allowed us to focus. When you are looking at somebody on the screen and you make eye contact and you really focus on what they're saying. So that has been a boon to everyone.
Great words. Thank you, Fran. Thank you very much. And finally, from group 9, Robin, you were going to share with us from group 9. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time with you. My group started with 3, and then after a couple of minutes, another person came in, and then after a couple of minutes, another person came in. So what I want to say is that this topic was great, and Dr. Fartun was wonderful. And so parts of what we came to is that you have to go into this being in a good place yourself, and then you can be a good listener. You have to be caring, you have to be authentic, and you have to try to find common ground. And so, yeah, that's what we came to.
Excellent. So that, I'm sure someone's going to interrupt me if I missed a group, but I think we got everyone. And excellent job, everyone, for coming back and bringing some really incredible wisdom pieces to this incredible group. So I am so grateful. And I'm going to turn it back over to Reverend Chris now, our host for tonight. There you go, Chris. You're in charge now.
Oh, thank you. I like being in charge. Thank you. So welcome back. And I have been so inspired, and I'm going to re-invite Dr. Fartun to come back and give us a wrap up. She's going to wrap up her summary of what she's observed, what she's heard from the small groups, and any other summary impressions that she would like to share with us.
Thank you, Sister Chris, and thank you, everyone. My goodness, I can just sit here and listen the whole night. What a great, wonderful, wonderful summaries of your group meetings. And I'm learning so much about how to run the Zoom meetings too, so thank you. I appreciate your walkaways that you all shared. There's 1 or 2 things that I'm just gonna highlight. And one of the things that I want to highlight is the self-care. I think one person said is you have to be okay for you to be able to listen. So, so true. Because when we become flooded And when we become overwhelmed with emotions or with our own, whatever that comes up for us, it's hard to listen to the other person. So sometimes it's good to tell the other person, if you feel comfortable in telling the other person, I'm flooded at this moment. Can we come back to this conversation? So I think what we're doing when we do that is we honoring the person. We're letting them know that it's not them that I'm walking away from. It's me that I need to take care of. And I think that's very powerful, the group that shared that. I think most of you had bits about that. And the intention and the light. It's about shining light on others. And that's what listening does for us. Because the spotlight is on the person. I'm suspending me and I'm listening to you. It's all about you at this moment. So share with me. And another person talked about the topics. One of the hacks about continuing a conversation, because the other person wants to be heard. So if I hold the space for you, there are things that I want to talk about. So I want you to reciprocate and hear me as well. What I tell with clients when I work with them, it's choose one topic, and when we become more intentional, choose one topic to talk about for that moment. And then you can take a break and come back. So this, I'm just gonna talk about this, and this is about you, and I'm gonna share with you. So that's really important. So it is about love. It is an act of love, it really is. It's an act of love for self, and it's an act for love for others. Because you're doing both of them simultaneously. So I really appreciate you all having me. If I could just, Sister Chris, can I do like a 1-minute activity with everyone? Is that okay? That's okay? Okay, all right. If you could do me a favor, I'm gonna do a quick breathing exercise because we're doing the self-care. It's the individual. To change a country, to change the world, it starts with us. So the self-care. So I'm gonna do a little breathing because when we become overwhelmed, you send a message when you're breathing, you send a message to your brain when you're breathing that everything is okay, that you are safe. So breathing exercise is one of the tools to kind of calm ourselves down when we get really excited or agitated. So we're gonna do a quick, if you could do me a favor and just find a comfortable space. And what we will do is, you can close your eyes or keep your eyes open. We will breathe in 5 times. We will count to 5 as we breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We pause, we breathe out, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do 3 rounds. And when you're doing the 7, the breathing out, let your body just become limp. Let it go. Your whole body just become like a noodle. So 5 in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. 7 out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with the body limp. So whenever you're ready, 1, 2, 3, go. I'll do it with you, go. Okay, come back to the room. Whenever you're ready, shake it. And it's a pleasure to be with you all. This has been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Chris. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Fartun. And I am so delighted that I was able to meet you through this venue. Your talk was very inspiring, and we are so grateful for all of your wisdom and for your presence here with us tonight. And I want to thank everybody who's here for attending. It's such an important time for us to be connecting, and that is our mission at JAM. And I want to just let you know, JAM stands for Jews and Muslims and all. And we can be found at jamandallinterfaith.net. And on the screen now is how you become a member of jamandall.net. And if you go to the website and click on becoming a member, you can do that. And becoming a member is supporting us. It's supporting us financially, but it's really supporting, it's letting us know that you agree with our mission and that you like what we're doing. And I am looking for Todd to take that screen off. Oh, here we go. Our winter roundtable series continues, and you'll see that we are continuing intensifying the light, and we are going to have our next one is loving thy neighbor, no exceptions. That's going to be introduced by Christopher DeSanti. And our March 8th one is Knowing Thyself, Handling Implicit Bias by Gail Price Weiss. And you can register by clicking on upcoming events on our website. And remember, that's www.jamandallinterfaith.net.
Thank you, everybody. This was very uplifting and inspiring, and we really needed it.
We are so grateful for everybody that was here. These are free of charge, and you register on Eventbrite for each session, and you'll find that on our website, jamandallinterfaith.net, and you'll receive emails with the links for these on it. And again, thank you, Dr. Mohamud, and we invite and hope all of you to be listening with open hearts and open minds and taking the wisdom from this spectacular evening out into this world that so needs our peace and our understanding and our open hearts. Thank you so much for being with us. Hope we see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.